Only in Kentucky can a single county claim the birthplace of bluegrass music, the only Major League Baseball player ever killed by a pitch, and an entire jurisdiction that somehow managed to lose the massive river it was actually named after. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky, one county at a time, all 120 of them. And today I'm learning about Ohio County. The county sits in the west central part of the state, planted firmly within the western coalfield region. The highest ridges top out around 800 feet near the Breckinridge County line, while the terrain gently slopes down toward the Green River and the Rough River. Today the population is around 24,000. But human history in this area doesn't start with modern farmers or coal miners, of course. It stretches back over millennia, leaving behind one of the most significant, really mind-boggling late archaic archaeological landscapes in North America. The county lies within the Green River Shell midden zone, and for centuries, ancient hunter-gatherers lived along the banks of the river. They ate millions of freshwater mollusks, discarding the shells in massive piles that eventually grew into these towering mounds. And the ash from their fires, their broken tools, and the shells created a unique chemical environment in the soil that perfectly preserved bone. And the crown jewel of this zone is Indian Knoll, a National Historic Landmark located right on the Green River. In 1939, right in the heart of the Great Depression, the WPA, Works Progress Administration, sent a crew of out-of-work local men to dig under the direction of University of Kentucky archaeologists. And what those men found in the dirt changed our understanding of ancient America. They uncovered over 1,200 human skeletons. And of course, these weren't just simple nomads. The graves revealed a highly complex society. They found intricately carved stone weights for spear throwers, bone owls, copper imported from Lake Superior, and marine shells brought up from the Gulf of Mexico. More incredibly, they found empathy. Within the massive burial mound, archaeologists discovered 21 intentional dog burials. In many cases, dogs were laid carefully to rest right alongside women and children. Looking at a 5,000-year-old grave of a child buried with their dog certainly seems to bridge the gap of time in a profoundly human way. When European explorers finally pushed into the region in the late 1700s, the river operated as the original superhighway. It was a brutal, unforgiving frontier. And a pioneer named Gabriel Madison secured a 4,000-acre land grant, and by 1785, settlers established a fortified outpost called Hartford Station near a prominent animal crossing on the Rough River. A few years later, in 1790, Colonel Joseph Barnett founded Barnett Station. Famous frontiersmen, including Daniel Boone, worked as surveyors in the region, mapping out the dense wilderness. But survival was, of course, never guaranteed. The early pioneers endured horrific clashes with indigenous tribes, defending their ancestral grounds. Can't blame them, though, of course, it's their land. In 1790, an attack on Barnett Station resulted in the tragic deaths of 2 children. Despite the danger, the settlements grew. On December 17, 1798, the Kentucky legislature officially carved Ohio County out of Hardin County. They named it after the Ohio River, which formed its sprawling northern boundary at the time. But if you look at a map today, you'll notice something funny. Ohio County doesn't actually touch the Ohio River at all. In 1815, the state carved Davis County out of Ohio County's northern territory. Then in 1829, they took another massive chunk to create Hancock County. In the process, they permanently severed Ohio County from the very river that gave it its name. As the 19th century progressed, towns like Hartford, Rockport, and Soralvo thrived as bustling, rowdy river ports. Flatboats and later steam-powered paddle wheelers hauled timber, crops, and passengers down the Green and Rough Rivers. The local economy was deeply agrarian. Families broke their backs clearing land to grow light and dark air-cured tobacco, corn, and hogs. But the county also embraced some highly unusual, maybe even some would say bizarre agricultural experiments for a little bit. From 1842 to 1848, local farmers attempted to cultivate silkworms. So imagine these like grizzled Kentucky pioneers, you know, the kind of men who had fought off bears and cleared forests with broad axes, all of a sudden delicately raising these fragile caterpillars on mulberry leaves to tap into the global silk trade. The experiment ultimately failed to take root in that sort of climate that they had, and the farmers quickly returned to their, good old reliable, dirty crops of tobacco and corn. And then came the Civil War, which shattered the county's river trade and plunged the region into chaos. The Union Army established Camp Calloway at Hartford, where it organized the 17th Kentucky Infantry to fight in the Western Theater. In response, Confederate General Highland B. Lyon swept into Hartford on December 20th, 1864. His goal was to destroy the Union Army's infrastructure. He ordered his men to burn the county courthouse to the ground, but in the wild, frantic scramble, quick-thinking locals were able to rush into the building and evacuating and preserving the county's paper records before the flames completely consumed the structure. A few months later, in February of 1865, Grayson County Home Guards ambushed an encampment of Confederate guerrilla fighters near Hartford, killing 6 in a brutal skirmish that defined the bitter, localized violence of that era. Following the war, the county's logistics completely transformed. The Elizabethtown and Paducah Railroad laid tracks through the county between 1869 and 1872. The arrival of the trains dealt a fatal blow to the old steamboat river ports, but the trains unlocked an entirely new massive economy: coal. As I mentioned, Ohio County sat directly atop incredibly rich veins of the western coalfield, and so massive mining operations sprouted up across the county, pulling thousands of men underground into the dark. It turned Ohio County into one of Kentucky's top coal producers for generations. The economy became a machine of extraction. And the subsurface wealth didn't stop at coal either. In 1912, wildcat drillers struck the very first commercial oil well in western Kentucky, just a few miles east of Hartford, sparking a localized petroleum boom that expanded with the discovery of the Ambrose Weller Pool in 1926. And so between that and coal, for a time, Ohio County was a powerhouse of energy production. But as we all know, the coal industry has faced a devastating decline in recent years. In late 2019, hundreds of miners at the Genesis coal mine received warn notices right before the holidays, informing them that the mine was closing and their jobs would be gone by February of 2020. It was a crushing blow to the families who had built their lives around the mines there. In more recent years, major employers now include the massive Purdue Farms poultry processing plant, Ritatsu Manufacturing, and WBT Nonwovens. In 2026, the Ohio County School District opened a brand new Board of Education and Transportation facility in Beaver Dam without having to issue any bonds. The county also supports a surprisingly robust healthcare system for a rural community. Ohio County Healthcare recently completed a massive expansion, including a new surgical wing, and currently operates 14 locations, employing over 750 people, keeping jobs and vital medical services right at home. Ohio County has also produced individuals who have shaped American history, sports, and culture. There's Private First Class Wesley Phelps, a local boy who was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for his heroism during World War II. There's also Virgil Earp, the older brother of Wyatt Earp, and a famous Old West lawman in his own right, who was born in Hartford. There's also a tragic sports story tied to the county. Ray Chapman was born in Beaver Dam in 1891. He grew up to become a star shortstop for the Cleveland Indians. He was beloved, known for his incredible speed and his ability to lay down a bunt. But on August 16th, 1920, during a game against the New York Yankees, Chapman was struck in the head by a pitch thrown by Carl Nays. The crack of the impact was so loud that the pitcher fielded the ball, thinking it had hit Chapman's bat. Chapman collapsed on the field and died 12 hours later in a New York hospital. To this day, this kid from Beaver Dam remains the only Major League Baseball player to have ever died from an injury sustained during a Major League game. But the county's most famous lasting cultural export comes from the tiny community of Rosine. In 1911, a boy named Bill Monroe was born on a 1,000-acre farm at Jerusalem Ridge. He was the youngest of 8 children. Because he had crossed eyes, he was painfully shy and often bullied, finding refuge out in the woods and in music. His parents died when he was young, and he was taken in by his disabled uncle, Pendleton Van Diver. Uncle Penn played the fiddle at local dances, and young Bill would back him up on the mandolin. Monroe absorbed everything music-related around him, such as the sounds of his uncle's fiddle, the Scottish and Irish ballads of his ancestors, and the blues guitar played by a black railroad worker named Arnold Schultz, whom Monroe greatly admired. So Monroe took these local Ohio County sounds and poured his own grief and isolation into them, sped up the tempo, and invented an entirely new genre of American music. He called his band the Bluegrass Boys in honor of his home state and gave birth to bluegrass music. Today, the Bill Monroe home place is painstakingly restored and listed on the National Register of Historic Places. But it's not just a museum. Every Friday night from spring through winter, musicians still gather at the Rosine General Store and the nearby Rosine Barn Jamboree. They gather in circles, rosin up their bows, pick their banjos, and keep the region's musical soul alive. So, that's Ohio County. What did I get wrong this time?